my thing with Iowa is this, man. And, I'm a Big Ten guy. I watch a lot
Yes.
of Big Ten football. Iowa is – this is what surprised me about Iowa, because normally, even when they are undefeated, I'm never high on them. I'm always like, okay, you play in the weakest division of the Big Ten. It's normally like the Notre Dames. You grind it out, and then you'll sneak a 3-point win over here. But they've like aggressively have handled every opponent. The defense is stingy. And that's why this game against Penn State to me is super important, because Sean Clifford and James Franklin, they have figured out like this Penn State offense has become high octane. They're capitalizing. Josh Doxson is looking amazing. And I think Iowa, if I'm correct, leads the Big Ten in takeaways. So I think it's going to be a really interesting game on defense versus offense, because if Iowa's defense is who I think they are and what they've shown to be in the first few weeks, it's going to be a long night for Penn State. Because then we know what Iowa's going to do. They're going to grind you out. They're going to roll grind you. They're going to run the football. Like that's who they are. They're like, we're going to play tough defense. And then don't sleep on the running back. I forget his name, and I'm drawing a blank, and I shouldn't. And it's not disrespect. I'm just drawing a blank. It's been a long weekend. But the running back from Iowa is not the typical running back from Iowa. He has speed. He's shifty.
Okay. They've got some explosiveness.
Yeah, they got some He can make an explosive play happen. And so the quarterback. Yeah. So the quarterback is a typical Iowa quarterback, but it's like they have just enough of the right pieces in the right places where this isn't your typical, hey, we're going to just out athlete Iowa. They have enough sneaky athletes that I believe that will make them competitive. Do I think they can compete with Bama and Georgia? No, I don't think anybody can. But I think from what I've seen so far in Iowa, I believe, and this weekend will be the eye test, but from what I've seen so far, I believe they can line up with anybody. And I'm not saying they're going to beat everybody, but I believe it wouldn't just be like, oh man, they got in here because they went undefeated in a weak Big Ten. I think they got there, and they're going to make it a very competitive game.
Here's what I think is really going to happen with the Big Ten. Let me say that. Let me restate that. Here's what I could foresee being a scenario. Penn State, Iowa beat up on each other this weekend. And let's just say Penn State wins that game.
Yeah.
So now Iowa's got a loss.
Which I think they will, personally.
Then Penn State goes and loses to Ohio State. Ohio State beats an undefeated Michigan team. Let's just go here for a second. Now all of a sudden Ohio State, a one-loss Big Ten champion Ohio State, is in the college football playoff. Team where no one's talking about, but just getting back to some of the same reasons we talk about, just the name recognition. I don't want that to happen. I don't even say I'm not even saying I think that's going to happen. I actually kind of agree with you. You've already put a call in that they're going to lose a conference game this year. And so, I mean, right? That's because they've already lost a game, but
they lost a game. And, national media is really, they played Rutgers yesterday and they put up 42, and everyone's like, Ohio State has found their stride. And I'm like, it's Rutgers. You should run them out of the building. And I know people are going to say, but you guys struggled with Rutgers last week. But I'm like, we made up for it with our game this week against Wisconsin. But it comes down to quarterback play.
Getting back to the Iowa thing, though, but just looking at their scores, which is really all I've done. I mean, I kind of glanced at the game Friday night against Maryland. But looking at their scores, it would show, okay, maybe there is a little bit more explosiveness on this team than like your typical Iowa, Hawkeye type roster. So I'm looking forward to watching that because that'll kind of help me. I see them at number 3, and my first thought is, okay, they're overrated. But I can't say that confidently because I don't really know. It's just me kind of going, are they really that good? Let me ask you this, and then we can move on to the Week 5 recap. If the Iowa Hawkeyes played the Ole Miss Rebels this weekend, who wins?
That's tough for me. And I'm just going to go back to this. I love Lane Kiffin, and I'll talk a little bit more about him in my Week 5 recap. I love the offensive genius he is. I think this, though. I think it's more of a toss-up than people really would want to give credit for. Now, we know SEC fans,
which is me,
to be fair, very big on, like, you guys are I will say this, are the best college football conference in the country. Partly of that is, I mean, you got Bama and Georgia,
The top
year.
tier.
Yeah, you know, the top tier. I would say this though. I don't think it would be a runoff on Iowa. I don't. I think if it's a neutral site game or if it's, you know what, I won't even say that. I think Iowa is comfortable going on the road. So I think a lot of factors play into this trade. So let me, if we're playing yesterday and the game is at Kinnick, I think it's really close. Kinnick's a hard place to play.
Especially a night game.
Especially a night game at Kinnick. There's always, and it's October. People hate playing at Kinnick at night in October. Something spooky always happens as Michigan. I think their defense is better than people want to give it credit for. I'm not saying they beat Ole Miss, but I am saying Ole Miss probably will walk into that game thinking, oh, we're about to run up and down the field on these guys. And I don't think it would be as easy as they are letting in to think like, oh, we're about to dominate Iowa. So that's, I think they make it competitive, man.
Here's why I asked that question, though. Because Ole Miss is a team that I think is a good team. Yeah. And I'll also throw another team in there like Kentucky. The only reason why I'm not bringing up Arkansas is because of my personal bias. But honestly, I would throw them in the same tier how they are now. Obviously, we'll talk about yesterday, but Kentucky, Ole Miss, like to me, those are teams that could potentially go on to lose multiple conference games before it's said and done. Yet we're talking about the number 3 team in the nation. We don't know. We don't know if Iowa would be. And so that's where it gets difficult for me to just crown Iowa as one of the top 4 best teams in the country when here are some arguable mid-tier teams from this other conference that are probably going to have multiple losses because of who they have to play. And so that's where I start. And look, but that's the argument and the beauty of college football, right? So anyways, that's kind of why I was asking you that. I am going to be talking about Kentucky here in a little bit again, by the way, because I did bring them up last week.
Before you go there, let me just say this last thing about Iowa, and then I'm done. And I can't believe I'm like capping for them as hard as I am, man. I'm not an Iowa fan at all. Actually, don't like them.
But it's Big Ten. I understand.
It's Big Ten, and so I kind of understand it. But this is the thought that came to my mind. We say, so what we're doing with Iowa right now is the same thing we do for OU every year. Every year we do the same thing for OU. Oh, man, are they really that good? But then a lot of people have no problem putting the crown on their head. Oh, but it's OU and all that. And so that's kind of thing where I'm leaning with Iowa. I'm like, yeah, I get it. And I'm looking at their schedule. It's right in front of me, right? So their schedule after tomorrow, Saturday's a big game. If they beat Penn State, all they have left is Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern, Minnesota, Illinois, and Nebraska. And then
just like OU. Beat Texas, you got Kansas,
Right. So
Kansas
that's my
State.
point. It's just, and that the only thing, if Iowa wins this week, I believe they'll run the table. I don't see anybody that's going to upset them. And then it depends who they face in the Big Ten championship game. This is what I will say, though. This is what I believe. I don't believe they're the best team in the conference. I believe they're maybe number 3 or 4. I believe you put this Iowa team in on the other side of conference lines, they suffer a loss or two. It's a different ball game, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're talking not just Penn State, you're talking Michigan, you're talking to Fighting Mel Tuckers, you're talking Ohio State. So I'm saying Iowa may be able to.
You're talking the Big Ten, basically.
Yeah. So I think Iowa may benefit that if they catch the right team at the right time in a Big Ten championship after going through a gauntlet of a season. Yeah. Because I believe Penn State, if there's any team in the Big Ten that's going to go undefeated, I believe it's Penn State. I think after Iowa, their next biggest, they have 2 more big tests. They have Michigan, which we play them. Michigan will play at Penn State, and then they have Ohio State, and I think they still have Michigan. So they still have the gauntlet left. Ohio State still has Michigan State, Michigan, and Penn State. Michigan still has Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. So I think that's what I'm saying. Iowa might get it because all those 4 programs, at some point, I don't think any of 4 go undefeated. Even as a Michigan fan, I don't think we go undefeated. I personally think we lose to Penn State and maybe Ohio State at the end of the year. So, and I think Iowa State benefits all that. They can catch maybe like, let's say a 8-2 team, an 8-2 Penn State or 8-2 Ohio State. And, we've seen them eke one out in the Big Ten championship before, and then they go to the college football playoff. So it wouldn't shock me if that happened. That's all I'm saying. It wouldn't shock me. The stars have aligned. The schedule has aligned. They just got to take care of business this weekend.